Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we are going to be learning more about Waterworks funding opportunities for source water protection. My name is Julie Floyd. I'm the Office of Drinking Water Operator Certification and Training Manager. We are glad that you are here today. Presenting will be Raven Jarvis, who is our source water protection specialist, and Bob Edelman will be assisting with questions in the chat. Raven, if you can advance to the next slide, please. Just a few housekeeping items. Please keep your microphone muted and your camera off. It just keeps things simple. We are recording this session, and we will send you a link to the recording and any handouts that Raven might have for you within about a week after the webinar. To zoom in and out, if you haven't used WebEx before, there's a plus and a minus up at the top of the screen for you to zoom in for better visibility. We will be handling all of our questions via the chat function. So in the bottom right-hand screen of your corner, there's a little thought bubble. You can use that to open the chat. Be sure to send any questions to everyone. And if we can answer quick ones, we will do that right at the moment, or we'll save them till the end for Raven and Bob to address. So with that, I will hand it off to Raven, and thank you again for joining us.
All right, thanks, Julie. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Like she said, my name is Raven Jarvis. I'm the Special Projects Engineer in the Office of Drinking Water here. And today we are just going to walk through the Source Water Protection Program overview, as well as what it is, why it matters, what the role of VDH is as opposed to EPA. We will also be talking a little bit about our what work our contractors are doing versus the Waterworks, the types of assistance and funding available. We'll touch a little bit on what activities are eligible and non-eligible. That is one of our bigger questions that we have, so we'll make sure to go over that today. So like she said, if any questions come up, feel free to make a note, put it in the chat. We will make sure to address it towards the end. So starting off, always asking the age-old question, why source water protection, or SWIP, as we say. So it's a preventative program. So that just helps communities safeguard the rivers, lakes, reservoirs, groundwater, all that that provide their drinking water. And the goal is to address risks before they become costly or a dangerous problem. A strong source water protection strategy is one of the most effective ways to protect our public health and promote our long-term sustainability. So there's several core reasons why source water protection is important. And we have here protect public health, build community trust. And I have first protect public health. Preventing contamination is always safer, more effective than responding after the fact. Secondly, building your community trust. Our customers, our community gain confidence when they know their waterworks are actively protecting their drinking water sources. As we saw recently with some of our city issues, building that trust is very important for when emergencies like that happen. So we always want to make sure that we're focusing on that aspect as well. Third, avoiding costly treatment upgrades. So when contamination enters a water supply or treatment requires increase, infrastructure costs can rise dramatically. So we want to avoid those as well. And finally, reducing long-term costs for both the waterworks and the locality. A single pollution event can lead to millions of dollars in remediation, legal costs, or the need to develop a whole new water source entirely. So source water protection is not just about environmental stewardship. It's about smart financial decisions and an investment in your community and in your waterworks. All right, so from the source water assessment to protection, I guess you can say progress or pathway, we could say. So every system begins with a source water assessment or SWA. That assessment identifies your protection area, your potential contamination resources, and overall vulnerability to the system. So that is where you are assessing your system. From there, communities develop a source water protection plan, which we'll be touching on a lot. It's more detailed roadmap outlining your strategies, partners, and implementation steps. And finally, the step that we all want to make sure we get to is the source water implementation step. That's where meaningful change occurs. This stage can include land conservation, maybe stormwater retrofits, wellhead protection projects.
Thanks for water being off.
Oh, and other on-the-ground protection efforts. I think someone's not muted. So the goal of today's webinar is to help communities move forward more confidently in the implementation stage where grant funding can help carry projects forward. So overall, we want to make sure we get from SWA to SWIP implementation, and that's the focus as we go through the whole process. So what is VDH's role in source water protection? We report to EPA, and some of that reporting includes our number of mapped source water assessments. We record how many community waterworks have protection strategies, the significant potential sources of contaminations that are identified, percentage of systems implementing their plans, that's a very important one, and how those numbers are changing over time. So to meet expectations, we provide guidance, contractor assistance, updated assessment information, and other funding opportunities. So supporting waterworks across the state helps strengthen statewide protection. It ensures we're aligning with not only our goals, but EPA's goals as well under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So that's a little bit of background information as far as some of the information that we pay attention to each year, how it aligns with our goals, and what is our motivation for providing incentives for waterworks to participate in our program, create your source water plans, and participate in the grant funding opportunities as well. So this slide is a lot of words, but I did want to leave it in there because it's important. This is our VDH source water protection program definitions. So because each state has the opportunity to define what substantial implementation looks like, VDH has developed our official source water definitions. So this slide just explains what we mean when we say a waterworks has a protection strategy in place, or a SIP, as you can see at the top. Strategy in place, SIP. So a SIP isn't just a single document. It's a full set of materials, plans, and strategies that demonstrate a community is actively protecting its drinking water source. So to qualify as having a strategy in place, 4 key elements need to be addressed here, and I'll kind of go through each step. So the first one, delineation of the source water assessment area. So first, the waterworks must clearly define your protection area. For surface water systems, that means a watershed. For groundwater systems, that will be a fixed radius around the well or more advanced delineation of the true recharge area. So this boundary is essential because essentially it tells us what influences our water source, where do the risks come from, and what land uses matter the most. So that's delineation of your source water assessment area. Secondly, inventory of potential sources of contamination are also included in your SIP. So there must be an inventory of major potential contamination sources that delineated in that delineated area. So that could include agricultural operations, fuel storage tanks, stormwater outlets, or even small businesses that handle chemicals. And knowing what exists in your protection zone allows communities to understand more about the vulnerabilities and prioritize the actions that you want to take in your source water plan. Also included in your strategy in place documents are recommended protection actions. So SIP must include recommended actions to either eliminate or reduce risks from the potential sources of contaminations that you've identified. So that can include buffer installations, spill response coordination, land use policy changes, maybe public education activities. These recommendations kind of form a heart of protection strategy. They describe the community that can realistically, what a community can realistically do to reduce that risk. And lastly, included in those 4 source water protection elements is a contingency plan for contamination events. Essentially, this is a playbook of what Waterworks can use if contamination occurs. So this is just your plan. If all fails, if the worst scenario, what is our plan and what are we going to do? So that may include emergency contacts. That might include alternative water source options, communication procedures, and steps to really isolate or respond to the event that has occurred. So that ensures that Waterworks are prepared not only to prevent contamination, but also to react quickly if something happens. So all of those important elements combine to form documents that we call a strategy in place. And I'll touch on a little bit more why those documents are important. This will all come full circle, but to review those, that's what it means to have a strategy in place, and also includes in some of the reporting that we do for EPA, and that's also why it's very important. So with that in mind, if you have a strategy in place, we also use the term substantial implementation. And with all these SIs and SIPs and SIs, it can get confusing. So I wanted to kind of go over a couple scenarios to give you an idea, maybe visually, what this looks like and how they all tie together. So it's required to have a strategy in place to form your source water protection plan. And we use the term substantial implementation. The official definition is defined as completing source water protection activities in intervals no greater than 3 years from last action's date. And VDH tracks our substantial implementation status of community water systems and submits that information to EPA in our annual reports. And also, before I get into the scenario, I did want to share information about our annual survey. So to also support this tracking that we do, along with our source water protection contractors that I'll touch on a little bit later, we also conduct an annual survey of all community water systems. So this survey helps us understand where each system stands in the source water protection process. We help use it to identify which systems currently have a plan, which systems may need updates, and which systems have not yet developed a plan at all. So all those elements are important to figure out where we fit in and where we can help. It's valuable because it tells us who might need technical assistance, who might be eligible for a free contractor support, and overall who's interested in moving forward with their assessments or their plans or wherever they are in the process. So ensuring that a system has a plan or even updating an older plan is often the first step towards becoming eligible for our grant program. So there's meaningful incentives for systems to participate in the survey and stay engaged. So I encourage everyone who receives that survey to fill it out, share the information, and let us know. Also let us know if you're not interested in receiving them in the future. And we try our best to update those lists and make sure that we are reaching out to the correct people. So I just wanted to share that, make sure that hopefully we make some people understand the significance of that survey and that it's all there to help make sure that we're providing as much assistance and guidance as we can to our community and our water systems. So with that being said, back to this slide, we're going to go over some substantial implementation scenarios. So the first scenario, a community wells in the coastal plain may be deemed as having a strategy in place and substantial implementation status when the well is constructed pursuant to the Virginia Waterworks regulations and supporting documentation exists. So this type of substantial implementation status does not expire unless there's evidence that well structure or aquifer has been compromised. So if a well is constructed according to the Virginia Waterworks regulation and there's supporting evidence showing that the well structure and aquifer are protected, then the system can be considered to have a strategy in place automatically. So the SI status remains in place unless something changes significantly. For example, new contamination concerns or maybe some structural issues. So this slide, this first scenario really just enforces that some systems, particularly in the coastal plains, may already meet a strategy in place requirements based on the integrity of their wells and aquifers. But even these systems can benefit from updated plans additional plan efforts, and the use of available funding to strengthen long-term resistance. And I'll slowly move to the next slide. In case I'm moving a little too fast, I'll let everybody catch up and slow down before I step into scenario 2. So far we've kind of covered why it's important, what it means to have a strategy in place and what documents are included in a strategy in place, and what it means to achieve substantial implementation, while we focus on who has substantial implementation or doesn't, and giving some examples now about which scenario you may fit into. So just wanted to recap before I go into scenario 2 so I could slow down and let everybody catch up if you're taking notes or anything. So moving on to scenario 2, this applies to most other systems. So let's say you're not in the coastal area. In scenario 2, a community source not meeting criteria under the SI scenario 1, as I just said, may obtain substantial implementation when developing a new source water protection plan for the first time, or updating a plan that has been more than 3 years old, or completing at least one protection recommendation or a contingency measure from that plan. So this structure really allows communities to steadily advance their protection efforts while providing clear guidance for achieving eligibility for grants and technical assistance. So those are the 2 scenarios that may fit under achieving substantial implementation. Scenario 2, again, is where most systems fit in as far as achieving substantial implementation status. So what does substantial implementation look like? So this slide just kind of reiterates and emphasizes the ongoing nature of a strong source water plan. Every 3 years, we recommend systems revisit and update their plans, review what's been completed, look at any remaining gaps, and adjust strategies based on how land use might have changed, any new developments or new contamination risks. So those are some things we recommend to take a look at least every 3 years. So for example, what substantial implementation looks like. Let's say your locality approved a new commercial development, like a gas station or warehouse near your well or intake. During that 3-year plan review, you'd evaluate how this new land use impacts your protection area and update your strategies accordingly. That may mean adding spill response planning, increasing public outreach, or identifying new potential contamination sources. So that could be one example. I'll give you a couple more as far as what this looks like and what we recommend reevaluating and reviewing. So let's say you're revisiting an outdated contaminant inventory. As land use changes, the type of chemical storage practices or waste operations within the protection zones might change. Of course, 3 years. A 3-year update might involve revisiting your contaminant inventory and identifying new businesses, farms, or industrial sites that weren't there when your plan was first written. So these are some things that might occur and why it's important to go look back every 3 years, identify those gaps. I'll give you one more example. Let's say you're completing one of your source water plan recommendations, which also would qualify you as having substantial implementation status. So for instance, if your plan identified an abandoned well as a vulnerability, sealing that well, or even developing the plan and cost estimate to do so, that's considered substantial implementation as well. So those are 3 different categories of what it looks like for substantial implementation. So it's all about keeping your protection strategies active and relevant, so they continue to safeguard your water source. All right, so what is the source water protection plan process? What do I need to do? How do I get started? This process is meant to be collaborative. It's tailored to each Waterworks, and a checklist and a step list that you can use to walk through the plan process. So starting off, forming a local advisory committee. That's made up of community members, government staff, other stakeholders. And then after developing that local advisory committee, you want to educate the community about the local source area, potential risks, regulatory or planning considerations. And then you want to review your assessment data. That's identifying any key vulnerabilities or priorities. After that, you want to identify actionable protection strategies, such as well abandonment, land conservation, emergency planning. And then after you formed your advisory committee, you have educated the committee, reviewed assessment data, identified your actionable protection strategies. Then you want to draft your source water protection plan, which we also have resources to help you with this process as well. So drafting your source water protection plan, then the most important part is implementing the plan. Over time, with funding, scheduling, and partnerships, making sure that the plan has been turned into action and make sure we're implementing what you put in that plan. And then, of course, always ending things with reviewing and updating the plan periodically to reflect new challenges or any completed tasks. So this process, it not only builds a strong plan, it strengthens long-term commitment with your system. So moving on from the process, here's some practical steps Waterworks can take when beginning or expanding their source water protection program. So that includes building local partnerships. Source water protection is really best when it's not done alone. So like I said before, all of these steps are meant to be collaborative. So building your local partnerships could look like local government planners, local businesses, environmental organizations. So for example, partnering with your county planning office allows you to provide input on new developments that may affect your protection area, or even partnering with fire or EMS ensures that they know exactly what to do if a spill occurs near your source. So these relationships are very essential for long-term protection, helping just build in your community and understanding drinking water risks. You can also request updated assessments. Many of our assessments that were completed years ago, maybe land use has changed significantly over time. So by requesting updated assessments from ODW, Waterworks can identify some new potential sources of contamination. You can get updated GIS boundaries or recharge areas. You can also understand new vulnerability pathways and support planning and grant applications with current data about your system. So those updated assessment acts as the technical foundation for your protection plan. And the remaining, I kind of covered those already, gathering additional environmental hydrologic data, creating your source water protection plan, making sure the information is a clear, actionable strategy for your town, implementing those projects, and then regularly reviewing your progress. So it's important to remember that source water protection is ongoing, and it adapts as your community grows, environmental conditions change. So constant project, constant improvements. So aside from the process and what you can do, the next few slides are sharing some information on the resources that are available to Waterworks and the community. Starting off with direct technical assistance. So these are just the employees in the Office of Drinking Water and our field offices. And I'll show you a map in a couple slides that overview our field office and contact information. But ODW just provides direct support to Waterworks needing help with plan development, assessment updates, or protection strategies. So that can include things like public education materials, plan and template guidance. If you need plan templates, we can provide those. Information about funding, of course. And then any general technical support around water source vulnerabilities. ODW is here to provide guidance for that as well. And like I said, so you can request a source water assessment by contacting your regional ODW office. and we're always available to help walk you through your options. This exact map is actually located under the Contact Us tab on our webpage. That's where you can find this information, so you can make sure you are reaching out to the correct contact. And it kind of shows you a breakdown of each of the field offices, so you can locate where you lie and who you need to contact to request assessment. So a few other source water protection assistance options that are available are our source water protection contractors. They are available to community water works serving less than 50,000 people. VDH provides free contractor support through Tetra Tech and CHA. So this support can significantly reduce some of the burden on system staff and maybe help move some source water protection work forward efficiently. Our contractors are available to help with forming those local advisory committees, so you don't have to do that alone. They are here to help with that process. They will also provide educational and technical guidance. They'll help draft or update a source water protection plan and help support your implementation projects, and also help prepare grant applications as well, or even to other programs. So not all waterworks may have experience writing grants or even grants for infrastructure projects or things like that, or have the technical expertise. So our contractors are here to help with that. They'll help identify which plan recommendations are eligible. They'll help draft the application narrative. They will make sure the project aligns with with our source water grant requirements. And overall, they'll just help improve the quality of applications and increase chances of receiving funding. So they're a great resource. They're definitely somebody you want on your side as you're going through the process of starting your assessments, creating your plans, applying for grant funding, and doing your follow-ups and reviews. So they're here to be with you along the entire process of that. They are extremely knowledgeable and extremely helpful. So that's just one more resource that is available to help. So there's specific contact information, and if you look on the right here, this map also indicates the area that they cover. So CHA will cover the lower half of Virginia, and Tetra Tech will cover the top half. This, of course, is also on our webpage. It can be found under the Source Water Protection Assistance and Funding Opportunities page. All of this information is there, and you can also reference this map to kind of see which contractor corresponds to your area. So now that I've shared some information about the contractors, I'll touch a little bit on what exactly is their role versus the role of the waterworks. So starting off with the contractors, they're mainly here to facilitate the planning and the implementation process. So overall, though, the waterworks remains the decision maker and the long-term implementer. So from the contractor side, they'll help facilitate meetings. They'll help provide technical expertise. They'll help draft and support plan documentation. And they'll just help with guidance throughout your implementation steps. So they are your guide, your mystical guide along your journey. On the other hand, what are the role of the waterworks? The waterworks will participate in those meetings, of course. They are the main ones knowledgeable about their system. So they will also be sharing, providing local knowledge and data, maybe some historical knowledge about the area or the system. The waterworks will also be the ones approving your protection strategies, responsible for implementing the plan, and then of course maintaining those long-term protection efforts. So on the other hand, waterworks will be the decision makers and the people who move it forward. I was going to say mover forwards, but that's not a word. So overall, throughout this whole process, VDH's role or ODW's role is just to help provide funding, oversight, and continued guidance throughout the whole process. So the most exciting part, the grant program, I'll touch on some of the eligibilities and some information about our source water implementation grant. This grant helps fund protection projects identified in your source water protection plan. It'll help fund new activities that reduce contamination risks, community-based outreach, physical protection measures, emergency or spill response planning, and other eligible projects. We'll review in detail in a few slides here. But these grants are available to community waterworks serving fewer than 50,000 people who have a protection plan and an active advisory committee. Applications are typically due early May, and you can always find the RFP and application template on our webpage, also on the assistance and funding opportunities page. Deadline information will be posted there as well. So if you need to know when is the deadline to get this in, where to send it to, all of that information is provided. Also on this link here for this source water grant application, if we send out this presentation, there's links provided throughout this whole presentation that you can also just click on. But if needed, it is on our webpage as well. So that is the source water. That's a overview of the source water protection grant program. Thanks, Julie. We provide funding for groundwater and surface water sources. And just to reiterate, so we all understand, you must have a source water protection plan. You must have a local advisory committee, and our contractors are here to help with that as well. So that's information about our source water grant program. I hope we have tons of participation this year and applications because the money is there. So let's take a quick moment to kind of look at some allowable activities. It's a lot of words here, but I wanted to make sure that I at least post as much as I can, and this will be something good to have on our webpage. So this will probably be on our webpage soon to reference as well, but I wanted to cover some activities that are eligible for the program and what are not. So eligible activities must directly reduce risks to the drinking water source. They must directly reduce risks to the drinking water source. So some allowable activities and some activities that we've seen in the past may include well abandonment to eliminate contamination pathways. We've seen tons of wellhead fencing projects or other barriers that are covered in the program. Protection area delineation. We've seen emergency response planning. All of these are allowable through the grant program, and you can see the theme of having it be directly reduced risk to the drinking water source. So we've seen security monitoring systems as well, land acquisition, surface water intake protection measures. So anything that directly reduces contamination risks or enhances project protection within the source water area is typically eligible. On the other hand, some non-eligible activities, those are more so routine maintenance related or unrelated to protecting the source activities. So while they may be important, they fall outside of the scope of what the grant is designed to support. So that might include public park enhancements, regular monitoring or sampling activities, maybe routine operations or maintenance of water systems, ongoing staff salaries. So you can reference the list. Those are some of the things that would not be eligible. So make sure to communicate with the contractors while you're working on them for your grant application, and make sure that we're aligning the application with activities that are eligible to make sure that you get as much money that you request in your application. And if any questions arise from this, please feel free to ask during the question section about eligible, ineligible activities, things like that. So start getting your questions ready. Which actually I'm pretty much wrapping up. So this slide kind of gives a summary of, we touched on which projects are eligible and which projects are not. This kind of summarizes who is eligible to apply and who is not. This information is in our webpage as well. Also under the assistance and opportunities, what is it? Assistance and funding tab on our ODW page. So to wrap up, to summarize some of the main points that I touched on for this webinar is that source water protection is essential. Essential for safeguarding our drinking water. It's essential for reducing costs and maintaining trust. Very important. VDH provides extensive support, including technical assistance, contractor services, providing updated assessments and grant funding. And lastly, eligible activities must directly protect the drinking water source. And we are here to help you determine what fits your system's needs. So those are quick overview of what I kind of touched on, the main points that I wanted to get across, and who is eligible, who isn't. Classified as community waterworks, serves less than 50,000 people, processes water directly from a drinking water supply source, a groundwater or surface water-based community water system may apply for the grant. Who's not eligible? I won't read that to you. This all information is on our webpage, but information to share if you do qualify or you don't qualify to apply for this grant program. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean there's no opportunities. If you do fall outside of the criteria for the grant program, make sure to reach out and still ask what other resources are available to you. Maybe even, there may even be a loan opportunity that we have information on that could better suit the projects that you're looking to fund. As well as your Virginia Rural Water Association. Make sure to contact your Rural Water Association rep to determine what other resources may be available if you've exhausted all options with the Office of Drinking Water. Betty Green is the contact for VRWA. She is lovely and a great contact to reach out to as well for other resource information. And that's it. So if any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Bob Edelman. My last day will be Friday, so I won't be particularly available for emails, but Bob Edelman, who is also going to help out with some questions for our question session, is a great contact to reach out to for further questions on grant information, funding information, or any other technical guidance that you may need. And with that being said, thanks again, everyone, for registering and attending today. I appreciate you taking the time to get more information on, all the steps or what you need to do to get grant funding and, get a source water plan together for your community. And with that being said, we can transition to the question portion. Again, Bob is here to help answer questions as well. I guess I'll just leave this last slide up, and Julie, if you want to help with chat info.
Yeah, the chat's been pretty quiet, so I do have one question, and maybe while I'm asking this, if other people on the call have questions about the program or how they can access the resources, just go ahead and throw that into the chat right now. So Raven, what is the time frame for applying for the grant funding? When does that all hit?
So typically, in a typical year, we open applications around October, and deadlines are usually May. That may vary by each year depending on timeline activities or any type of restrictions we may have. But typically around October, look for that to be available and open, and deadlines usually around May 1st.
And is the funding offered through this, is it reimbursement?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just looking at the website real quick. So I think might need to get some application information uploaded there, but we can work on that. I don't know if there were any other questions. What have you seen as the most common item applied for under the grant program?
We see a lot of well fencing. Seen a lot of security installations. I've seen a few hydrological studies, some emergency planning projects. Last year, I'm trying to rack my brain on exactly last year, like the exact last year's project. We had some chemical storage, what is it? Restoration or removal of chemical storage near a, I'm blanking on the building that the water pump is
Well
near.
house.
There we go. Thank you. Chemical removal to make sure that their water systems are safe, no runoff, no contamination. So those are the main
So
ones. I
if,
see a lot of well fencing, and I see a lot of hydrological studies and preventative activities.
so if a water system has chemical storage on site that does not have secondary containment, would that be, and would adding that secondary containment qualify as long as they
Absolutely.
meet all these
Yeah.
other requirements?
Middleburg, the town of Middleburg, they're a high participant in the grant program. They make sure to apply every year. So they have applied for a project like that before.
And how much funding overall is available in the next year, in the next funding
Oh,
cycle?
good question. I should have included that in the information. We have 120,000 dedicated to the grant program. That can be split up between how many applications we have. So it's not a designated number per application. It's based on the evaluation system and how many applicants we have that we can mix and match the amount that we award.
What does your evaluation look like? Do do you use a point system, or how do you determine which ones you're going to fund?
So it's a total, it's a number system, and the actual evaluation questions that we have are directly in the application. So you'll be directly answering the questions that we have for evaluation. So we have some contingency information on there. We have some cost um, cost questions on there to understand how much money do you need? What will it cover? Would you have a contingency plan? Does your source water plan match up with what you're asking for in the application? And of course, the generic criteria of, do they have a LAC or a local advisory committee? Do they have their source water plan, and have they done the prerequisites to apply to the program? So those are the three main boxes that we're looking at.
Excellent, thank you. Do you see that small systems tend not to get source water protection assistance like through the program? Because we've got these two contractors. Do you see that being taken advantage of mostly by larger waterworks, or smaller, or what group tend to not be engaged as much?
I see a little bit of it all, but yes, I do see that larger towns are applying. So we want to make sure that the smaller systems have an opportunity. And that's why it was designed also, because a lot of the smaller systems may not have good retention. So they may not even have a lot of staff on hand to help finish all of this, which is why we have the contractors available. So yeah, that is definitely one of the goals, to increase the amount of participation and increase smaller systems to apply for the application or for the grant.
And just to clarify, this is for any community waterworks?
Community, yes.
Okay. I don't see anybody having put other questions in the chat. Maybe I've snagged a lot of them just by asking and talking through this.
Good.
But if you do have any other questions, we've got an extra minute here or so. Feel free to drop it in. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to Bob, and he'll be able to get you the answers that you need and connect you with the contractors. And there is a question here. Is surface water sampling eligible for funding?
You know, I don't believe sampling is eligible. Bob, do I have that correct? I want to say no, I don't believe sampling is eligible for the grant program.
Does it make a distinction between compliant sampling or like determining if there's a problem kind of sampling? like non-compliance.
So this is Bob. We're not able to use federal funds, this is money coming from the SRF funding, which is federal dollars. We're not able to use federal dollars to pay for compliance sampling. The if the sampling is covered in the source water protection plan, possibly we could consider funding that, but that it wasn't listed on that the list of potential projects. On the other hand, if you're developing a new source or trying to evaluate your sources, possibly. So I think the answer is if it's not compliance sampling, that's a possibility. But again, it needs to be part of a bigger project or picture, I would say.
So Bob, there was a follow-up on that one, that this would be sampling due to new industrial agriculture moving into the watershed. So that sounds more like surveillance as opposed to compliance.
Yeah, we would have to have a conversation about that.
Yeah. One more question, Raven. When you're evaluating projects for the grant program, what common shortcomings have you seen? So application comes in, what typically gets them knocked out right off the bat? How can people put together a good application?
I've mostly seen good applications, so that's good. But I will say the main thing really would just be applying for something that is ineligible. So maybe applying for something that's more routine maintenance work that may not be eligible for the program. So I think that's mainly what we've seen. Bob, if you've seen anything else that you want to share as well, but I think we've seen mostly okay applications, and then just figuring out if this is what they're asking for, is it eligible for us to fund?
Yeah, so we have seen projects that are not on their not on their plan. In other words, they're proposing to do something that's not a listed item. And so the important thing is that your plan has activities that you're actually proposing to do. So that would be one shortcoming. The other shortcoming we've seen is where there's not a lot of information about how they're actually going to accomplish a particular project. And so it's kind of left to the imagination on whether they can actually carry that project out, and whether they've done homework to determine the total cost of the project. So those are some shortcomings as well. And if it appears that, I don't know, the water system has got a cost estimate, but they haven't really thought through implementing the project, it might get scored lower. So showing readiness to proceed and having the resources actually carry out the project is helpful, I think, in a good application.
Yeah, so making sure that you're making a strong case for your contingency plan is important. Yeah.
There's another question. What are examples of surface water intake protection applications that you have seen? So surface water intake protection.
I think. And Bob, if you want to share anything, let me know.
So I think the truth is there hasn't been a lot. I think there's been some requests for fencing. I'm thinking about a water system that uses surface water from a quarry. I don't know if that's helpful. And I think one water system asked for money for signs, so that people, when they're driving on the road, they realize that they're within the source water protection area.
Yeah.
That is the last question in the chat. Any final thoughts?
So,
Raven or
so
Bob?
this is Bob. I recommend everyone spend some time taking a look at the website and the materials that we have on the website, and we anticipate that those will be updated as we get closer to the grant application deadline. Although the information most likely will be the same as what's already up there, we might just adjust the deadline for 2026.
And I
Yeah.
am putting the link to the website again in the chat. So if you didn't
Yep.
get it the first time, there you go. All right. Well, with that, we will call it a wrap. Thank you again. Thank you, Raven, for your time and bringing this information to us, and Bob. And you all have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great day, everyone.